Since 1987, the Final Fantasy video game franchise has delighted fans all over the world. Square Enix's epic role-playing game series has sold over 100 million copies worldwide. Now, join us as we look back at all the magic, beauty, tragedy, mythology, and wonder of this beloved franchise. This is the Lifestream podcast, Final Fantasy Retrospective Series.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Lifestream podcast, Final Fantasy Retrospective. This is the fourth episode in an epic journey covering the entire expanse of the Final Fantasy franchise. And joining me on this monumental quest are Flintlock.
Hey, first time on the Retrospective pod. Good to be here.
JasonTandro.
I've been here for a while. How y'all doing today?
Lex.
Also first time on the Retrospective pod. Hooray.
And Ryushikaze.
You must purge the darkness in your hearts to defeat me.
And yes, welcome to Flint and Lex. This is indeed their first foray into this. Get ready for a lot of time.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. So, this podcast series is a love letter to the terrific Final Fantasy video game series, and throughout the series, we'll be playing and providing in-depth reviews for nearly every Final Fantasy game released in the West. We'll also be playing games from the associated franchises, the Chrono games, Kingdom Hearts games, and the Bravely Default games. And today's entry, as you may well have guessed, is Final Fantasy IV, originally developed by Square, initially for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Released in Japan on July 19th, 1991. Then, an easy-type version was released on October 19th of 1991. It was released originally in North America as Final Fantasy II, since initially Final Fantasies II and III didn't get released outside of Japan, and that was released in North America on November 23rd, 1991. Ryu, I am going to go ahead and let you read off our production credits.
The director was Hironobu Sakaguchi. The producer was Masafumi Miyamoto. Co-designer and co-writer was Takashi Tokita. Character, title logo, and graphic designer was this little-known indie art dude named Yoshitaka Amano. And the composer is this garage band guy. I mean, he's really obscure. Nobuo Uematsu.
And a little bit about the development on Final Fantasy IV, and this is thanks to our friends at the Final Fantasy Wikia. The idea behind development on Final Fantasy IV was to find a way to balance being story-driven a la Final Fantasy II, but also have some job change elements a la Final Fantasy III, thus making an ultimate Final Fantasy, if you will. Development was approached from a movie editing perspective in an effort to make the game more dramatic and story-driven. This helped to prevent players from getting lost or confused when it came time to figure out where to go next in the game. Final Fantasy IV marked the debut of the active time battle system. It was created by Ryu.
Hiroyuki Ito.
Thank you. And its initial intent was to offset for the fact that the party was less customizable than in previous entries. Ito also felt that eventually JRPG battles would be done in real time, so the
props to him.
Yep, absolutely. So the active time battle system was born to be the in-between step. Ito felt players would be overwhelmed and turned off if they were to add too many action elements to the gameplay at that point in time. Final Fantasy IV's version of the active time battle system is the only version that features a charge time for spells. The charge time was dependent upon the strength of the spell being cast. It was removed in later games as developers felt that the waiting times were too long. Later, Square would release the Japanese exclusive Final Fantasy IV Easy Type. It is widely believed that the original North American release of Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy II, was a translation of Easy Type. However, this is a false accusation as Easy Type was developed after the North American release. So, it is Easy Type that got its influence from the North American release.
They made it even easier for the Japanese kids than they did for us.
So, I've actually never even played the Easy Type version of the game. Have you, Ryu?
I have. I've at this point I have played every single version of Final Fantasy IV except for the mobile, which is a slight variation on the DS version.
And so is it so that much easier than the North American release of the original Final Fantasy IV release?
In some places it is noticeably easier. For example, they give you a sword called the Piggy Stick. That is a non-metallic weapon of proper scaling strength to head into the Dark Elf's cave with.
Interesting.
And a lot of enemies don't even have their punishment, reaction commands anymore.
So no counter attacks, basically, is what you're saying.
No. There are still plenty of them, but there are a lot less of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like the behemoths still have counter, but some of the early fiends do not.
Interesting. Okay, so certain things in the easy type game were done to tweak the difficulty, as Ryu alluded to, such as removal or altering of some spells, abilities, and items. There were also some changes to the names of many enemies, attacks, and items. Prices in the shops were dropped, and there were some changes made to the text to make it easier for children to understand. The original North American release of the game fell victim to censorship and bad translation. Surprise,
What a
surprise. Yeah. Any references to religious imagery in names were completely removed. The violence and death was either reduced or at times completely removed. There were also various name changes in all aspects of the game.
There's one thing I want to just comment. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's one thing, one particular censorship I remember them mentioning was in the scene in the Tower of Zot with Rosa tied to the bed there. It's a guillotine, but in the North American release, they changed it to, for some reason, this is less violent, like a giant weight, like an almost cartoony looking weight.
It was a giant sphere.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's even cartoonier than that.
Also, it wasn't a bed. It's basically she's hanging by a post.
Oh, hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't get the need for the censorship of the religious imagery either.
There really isn't any in the game.
Yeah, have you played the original Japanese version of the game?
Yes.
Okay.
The closest to religious imagery is the fact that the spell that was holy is pearl, and I think that's what they mean. Mostly, like, the weird thing that got changed was, like, most all of the deaths are still in there, including a lot of incidental comments about it, but stuff like the darkness ability got removed.
Weird. Just some weird choices. The reason Square chose to make the US version of the game easier was because at the time, the original Final Fantasy was the only game of the series to be released in the US, and Square felt that it would be too much of a challenge for US players to dive right into Final Fantasy IV, having not played the other games in the series. Thus, it was rebalanced, simplified, and remarketed as a follow-up to the original Final Fantasy as Final Fantasy II, and thus began many years of confusion for many people who don't follow the series regularly.
I mean, that's why the nomenclature of 2 US and 3 US came about.
Yep. Although, as we've seen on our own forums recently here, we had someone pop in asking why Final Fantasy III and Final Fantasy VI were essentially the same game.
Because they are.
Yep.
Oh, man. He should be following the retrospective series.
Indeed.
He did.
Final Fantasy IV has since been re-released on multiple other platforms, including PlayStation via the Final Fantasy Chronicles release, WonderSwan Color, Game Boy Advance, Android, iOS, PSP via the Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection, Steam, and of course there is the Nintendo DS remake.
Fun fact, I just want to chime in here.
Sure.
You know how you guys had Final Fantasy Anthology, which was Final Fantasy V and Final Fantasy VI on the PlayStation?
Yes.
Yep.
In the UK and Europe, Final Fantasy Anthology was Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy V.
Good call.
And Final Fantasy VI had its own release, like on its own as a PlayStation game.
Did they fix the load times for the Final Fantasy VI own release? Because those were terrible.
Not as far as I'm aware.
I don't think so, no. But yeah, we had 4 and 5 in our anthology, and Chrono Trigger never released on PlayStation here.
That sucks.
Oh,
That sucks.
I'm so sorry for you.
Interestingly enough, I think also the original Japanese release of the Final Fantasy anthology included 4, 5, and 6, did it not?
I think so. I don't know why they chose to split them up. Obviously, maybe it was a popularity thing, but yeah, we didn't get Final Fantasy Chronicles. Our anthology was 4 and 5, and then we had 6 on its own.
So you didn't get extra Chrono Trigger. Oh well.
Man.
Don't think so.
Yeah.
Sad face.
Like I
You
said,
see
the
the amazing
load
anime
times were
cutscenes.
terrible. The menu load times, I should say, were terrible, and that is unfortunate.
I haven't had a chance to play Chrono Trigger on the DS. I own it, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet. Does anybody know if they corrected those load times and stuff for the DS release?
Oh, that's absolutely fixed. You don't even have to. They have a slightly new UI, so you technically can always have the menu up.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it's I don't know why, but basically they had to load the menu from disk every time you hit the button. But yeah, so that basically artificially extended the time of all of the Final Fantasies on the Final Fantasy remakes on the PlayStation, due simply to the fact that it took like 30 seconds sometimes to get to the menu.
Ouch.
Yeah,
But those cutscenes were worth it.
actually, a lot of the added cutscenes for Chrono Trigger were very nice.
They were amazing, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So, going back into the Nintendo DS remake then, this version of the game is known to be more difficult. It was remade by the same studio that developed Final Fantasy III for the DS, Matrix Software. According to executive producer and original scenario writer, go ahead, Ryu.
Takashi Tokita.
Thank you. About 3/4 of the original scenario was cut from the original SNES release. Some of this material was worked back into the DS remake. It introduced a new ability system called Augments. It also introduced a new summon, Wit, which makes use of the touchscreen and stylus. The difficulty was cranked up in order to appeal to a wider audience. There was also a new Game Plus feature that allowed players to restart the game from the beginning using their leveled up characters, magic, equipment, and augmented stats from the previous playthrough. The difficulty was also ramped up on the subsequent playthroughs.
That is slightly incorrect.
Okay.
You do keep your leveled up. You do not keep your leveled up characters or magic.
Really?
You only keep certain equipment, but you do keep all of your augments.
Okay. I misunderstood that then.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
So, and augments are the hardest thing. Well, not the hardest thing, but once you have your augments set up, you're good to go. So, it does have an interesting fact that you're only allowed to start a total of 3 games off of the same file.
So, right, and I think some people have figured out like a roadmap to maxing out all your characters by moving the augments around in a certain fashion between the characters through each playthrough.
It is only necessary if you really want to do all the optional super bosses that they added, but because otherwise, like, you can just cakewalk down to Zeramus and, you know, wreck his face like usual.
And by the way, Ryu would know this because he actually did 2 run-throughs for Final Fantasy IV for this retrospective. He actually played the complete collection version, and he also played the DS collection version, and managed to lap me. So, all right. Moving on to the characters from the game here. Our main character we're introduced to right away, Mr. Cecil Harvey.
Cecil Harvey.
Cecil, whatever.
It's actually pronounced Cecil. It's they gave a pronunciation guide to all the names in the DS version, and his is, and they also pronounce it multiple times, but his is Cecil.
You know,
Cecil.
You know, oddly enough, when I played my one playthrough of the DS version of the game, I actually played it with the volume turned off so I could play it at work. And I never actually realized that it actually had voice acting in it.
You're an American hero, man.
So it's actually hilarious. Some of the voices that are in the DS version, they actually got all the people who are in the DS version who are in Dissidia to come back for Dissidia on both versions.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, so Yuri Lowenthal, Sasuke, Uchiha, Yosuke from Persona 4, etc., etc., etc. That's the voice of Cecil. And he sounds nothing like he usually does. Then there's Liam O'Brien as Kane, who sounds like he almost always does. He's doing his very deep, angsty voice that, is Caius Ballard from 13.2 and 13.3.
Love that guy.
I love that voice, though. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing.
So, running at the risk of sounding like a fucking idiot reading off the rest of these names, I will go ahead and defer to someone else, okay?
I'll do this since, you haven't heard my voice enough this time. So, next to that, we've got Kane Highwind, Rydia, Tella, Edward Chris von Muir,
a.k.a. Gilbert.
a.k.a. the most useless party member in the game.
Amen.
Depends
Rosa
on...
Jo...
He also gives you a really, really good augment in the DS version. Bard's Song is great once he's high enough level, or anybody else is high enough level to get the good songs. He is never high enough level in a normal playthrough.
Rosa Joanna Farrell, Yang Fang Leiden. I can't believe that's his middle name. Okay. Palom Porum, Sid Polendina, Edge Geraldine, and Fusoya.
Edge being short for Edward Geraldine. I believe it's short for Edward Gerald. Let me double check.
So basically, he was just the pompous young teen who was like, "You can't call me Edward. My name is Edge," and he started wearing like gothy clothing.
Yes, that is indeed.
Sorry. It's not short. It's just a compression of his names, Edward Geraldine, Edge. But he's basically a chewing bull, not a goth. Which is slightly different. He's basically the, look at my dark power, I'm a ninja. Except he actually is a ninja.
He reminds me of Peter Parker in Spider-Man 3. That's what he reminds me of.
he reminds me of, like, Vegeta mixed with Yuffie.
Hilariously, neither character exists just yet. He predates both Vegeta and Yuffie. I mean, obviously Yuffie, but also
Vegeta. Yuffie, yeah.
But yeah, no, this game actually came out, I think, before the Saiyan arc in Dragon Ball Z.
By the way, Ryu, I should probably say this. I need to, first off, publicly apologize, because I was completely wrong. I don't know what I was thinking when I was, 16, but 4 was not hard at all. Like, it was not remotely difficult. Not the SNES version, at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Especially not the version we got. And even hard type isn't that much worse.
I'll tell you what it was, honestly, because I was kind of a douchebag when I was a teenager. It was probably just I was bitching that it was not, what I was used to. It was like, oh my goodness, I have to manage my inventory. God, this sucks, man.
I hated that.
Interesting note. The prey ability that Rosa has, it's basically useless, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't in the DS version for 2 reasons. One, as you get higher level, the chances of it working go up. And not only does it work more often, but the healing that it gives you scales with your HP, and it gives you MP back.
Wow. Okay. That's crazy.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to the story discussion. Alright, so we'll handle the story discussion here the same way we always do here. We'll alternate reading. So again, this story summary is brought to us by our good friends at the Final Fantasy Wikia here. So we open up here with the intro, which goes, "And so the Dark Knight Cecil was stripped of his command as the captain of the Red Wings. He and the Master Dragoon Kane head toward the Dark Valley for the Village of Mist. The advent of the airship marked the realization of Baron's dreams, but also the birth of its militarism. With its Royal Air Force Red Wings, Baron soon reigned supreme. Now as monsters multiply and stir unrest, Baron only exploits its power to collect the world's crystals. Why? The crystals silently shed their light."
The Kingdom of Baron has begun an unprovoked military campaign against other countries. Lord Captain Cecil Harvey and the Red Wings Air Force attack the wizard's town of Mysidia and seize the water crystal. Deeply disturbed by his actions, Cecil asks the king why he is being given such orders. The king strips Cecil of his rank, and when Cecil's friend Kane Highwind speaks up for him, the king orders both of them to Mist to kill its eidolon and deliver a carnelian signet. Cecil's love, Rosa Joanna Farrell, and old friend Sid Polendina try to assuage his self-loathing before he departs, although they too are disturbed by Baron's actions.
Cecil and Kane fight their way through Mist Cave and defeat the dragon eidolon that guards the exit. When they arrive in the village, the Carnelian Signet releases bombs, which raze the buildings and kill most of the inhabitants. They find a young girl named Rydia mourning her mother, the dragon summoner, who was killed by the death of the eidolon. The two men are horrified that they were sent to slaughter a town and resolve to oppose Baron. When Cecil apologizes to the girl and tries to take her to safety, Rydia is enraged and summons Titans. When the earthquake stops, Kane is gone and Rydia is unconscious.
And I just want to stop here real quick and just mention this, because this is actually a really powerful moment for, I think, for the Final Fantasy series. I love this scene when Cecil and Kane realize what they've done here, and it I don't know, it strikes home for me for some reason. It's very emotional.
I do have in my notes, this game is dark, yo. From that scene.
Yeah, it's. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm going to hold off until we get to the Mount Ordeal scene later.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
That is
All right, so...
Oh, sorry. I was going to say...
I was going to continue reading the story. What are you going to say?
I was going to jump in. That is a cutscene in the DS version, and she screams her head off. Stay away from me. Ooh. It's great.
Cecil brings Rydia to Kaipo, the nearest town. Baronian soldiers arrive during the night to kill Rydia, but Cecil fights them off and earns her trust. The next day they find that Rosa followed Cecil to the town and came down with desert fever. As the only cure is a sand pearl from Damcian, Cecil and Rydia set off in that direction. They team up with the sage Tela in the underground waterway, as he is also going to Damcian in pursuit of his daughter Anna and the bard she eloped with. The three of them witness the Red Wings bomb the castle and seize the fire crystal.
Inside, they meet the bard, actually Prince Edward Chris von Muir, and Anna, who is mortally wounded. Anna stops her father from stops him from continuing to attack, let's be honest, Edward, and dies in his arm. Edward explains that she shielded him from the attack, which also killed his parents and most of the castle, and that the Red Wings are now led by a man named Golbez. Enraged, Tela leaves to seek revenge. Although Edward is paralyzed by grief, Rydia and Cecil berate him, and Edward agrees to help them find the Sand Pearl. They go to the Antlion's Den and defeat the owner, obtaining the needed item.
No thanks to Edward, who is a really awful character.
Also,
at the
Sand
beginning
Pearl
of this game.
is better known as the Antlion Ruby, and many other things. It is not a pearl so much. It's more gastric juices.
That's a good way of putting it.
In the Game Boy Advance version, they called it I think it was called the Star Ruby or something like that.
Yeah.
It is essentially the Antlion's saliva mixed in a very bizarre way with the sand itself, which is why they are so hard to come by, and is why you need to go get the go stock up on it, because nobody has them around, even though everybody knows it's the cure for a common ailment.
You read my journal. I was just bitching about that. Okay, go ahead.
The pearl cures Rosa, and she informs them that Baron is planning to attack Fabul for the Crystal of Wind. She joins the party despite Cecil's protests, and they set off. When they cross Mount Hobbs, they meet a Fabul monk named Yang Fang Leiden. Together, they warn the King of Fabul of the impending attack and prepare a defense. However, the Red Wings' assault is too strong, and they are driven back to the Crystal Room, where Kane appears and attacks Cecil. When Rosa makes him hesitate, Golbez arrives and incapacitates all of the defenders. Seeing Cecil's concern for Rosa, Golbez abducts her and departs with his forces, that son of a bitch.
So they sort of glossed over a couple things there, especially the start of Mount Hobbs.
Yeah.
Where it turns out that Rydia has a bit of post-traumatic stress. I won't say it's a disorder, but she definitely has an aversion to fire, and has not been able to cast it up until this point.
And that's just how brilliant of a scene that is, because they could have just had it, you don't know it until this point, or they could have not even done that, but they took the extra time to make a story element out of this girl learning a spell. Little moments like that.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say about that. That's a really powerful moment in the game here. So someone confronting their fears to help out the rest of the team. That was a brilliant moment.
She will never learn fire on her own. Hilariously, if you jack your XP gains up, she can continue to learn higher level spells such as Fyra and Fyraga. She actually has all of the mages in the game have a 100% complete list that, if you take them high enough, will take them up to like learning Holy or Meteor or whatnot. Except for Tella, obviously, who has a very specific set gated by plot. But Rydia will never learn fire on her own. It has to be at this plot event, and that's a nice bit of coding. The other thing that hold on. The one other thing that they gloss over, that just to make sure, is that the he who hesitates is Kane, not Cecil.
Oh yes, correct. Yes,
and that is for romantic triangle reasons.
Cecil, Rydia, Edward, and Yang immediately go after them. Their ship is attacked by the sea monster Leviathan, which swallows Rydia and shipwrecks Cecil alone on the shores of Mysidia. The townspeople are hostile and inflict various status effects on him in revenge for the Red Wings' attack. Cecil meets with the Elder, who tells him to go to Mount Ordeals and become a paladin to atone for his crimes. He assigns twin mages Palam and Porum to spy on him. Accompany him.
The party reunites with Tella on the mountain, and he is there seeking the power
of Tella on the mountain.
That's terrible.
God. Your joke is bad and you should feel bad. Golbez sends the Archfiend of Earth, Scarmiglione, to stop Cecil.
Scarmiglione,
yeah. I'm not so good with the Italian. I've only read Inferno once. To stop Cecil, but the party defeats him. A mysterious voice at the summit calls Cecil his son and tells him to vanquish the Dark Knight. Cecil transforms into a paladin and is attacked by his doppelganger of his Dark Knight self, but he correctly defends rather than attacking it and dissipates. The voice of his father grants Cecil his light. The encounter also restores Tella's memory and he learns Meteor. The Elder gives Cecil the Mithraven blade and tells him the Mysidian legend, believing it speaks of Cecil. Yes, I did intentionally back and forth the pronunciation of his name, by the way.
Yeah, I was actually getting ready to point that out. I thought I'm sitting over here laughing my ass off here.
I was doing that just to throw you up, wake you up this morning. No, okay, this fucking scene, oh my god. This is one of the strongest moments in any Final Fantasy story, bar none, because how many stories, every Final Fantasy story that has existed has always been brave heroes, damn near flawless. If they have flaws, they're minor character flaws, but they're all really good people. But here you've got the main character of a Final Fantasy who, even though he was quote-unquote just following orders, committed atrocities and war crimes, actually having to go and repent for them.
Yes.
That is so rare and so edgy a concept that, this game handles it perfectly. This is exactly the right amount. He goes through this sort of feeling like he's worthless and he doesn't deserve love. He doesn't deserve to be a knight. And then he has to actually face the victims of his atrocities face to face, and they have to forgive him, and then he has to forgive himself. That is just amazing.
Yeah, it's a really powerful plot point. It's part of what makes Final Fantasy IV just the beautiful, brilliant game that it is.
The voice acting in the DS version absolutely helps for this, because there are a couple of added or slightly altered lines. Early on, Cecil, there's a great line about how long until all the love in my heart is extinguished, even my love for you, sort of thing, when he's talking with Rosa. I mean, it's not exactly that, but it's very close. And then his final sort of mixed confusion and elation at being a paladin and having somebody, call him son is also excellent. It's just sort of and then of course Tella jumps in to gloriously go, I remember it! Meteor! It's hilarious. It's this great bit of mixing this very serious moment with this very trying to be serious old man.
Are we ready to continue?
Proper badass moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coolio. Cecil, and the others now infiltrate Baron via the Devil's Road. Golbez has manipulated the soldiers of Baron, and the king is revealed to be Cagnazzo. Fuck off. I'm not saying that. The elemental archfield of water. Yang has also been brainwashed, but a fight brings him back to his senses and he rejoins the party.
He does that well before the fight.
They destroy the traitorous Baigan and the false king, but Cagnazzo locks them in a death trap. Palom and Porum petrify themselves to stop the walls, and by the way, I love this moment in the game. Palom and Porum petrify themselves to stop the walls from crushing the others and cannot be restored. Sid, who escaped imprisonment and joined the party in battle, gives them his newest airship, the Enterprise.
A couple of things on this. First of all, when you were pronouncing Cagnazzo, I thought you were going to say cock nozzle or something.
Oh, he's absolutely a cock nozzle.
But
that's the accent.
To me, Cagnazzo isn't even the biggest bitch. The bigger bitch is Baigan, who, if you've never fought him before, you cannot destroy both of his arms. You need to leave at least one of them before you beat him. And then you have to hope after you beat him that you can destroy the other arm before it self-destructs and kills one of your characters.
I had problems with Baigan. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
I did too. Every time.
Let Baigans be Baigans.
Oh my god. Burn in hell! Oh man, no. Cagnazzo was pathetically easy.
Yeah.
I mean, just spam bolt. Okay.
Oh, they change it up slightly so that he is not always weak to lightning in the DS version. It's only when he's in his turtle state.
Yep.
Which at least makes the fight a little more interesting.
And
also they do that paragraph is a bit misleading because they do not realize that the king is the elemental archfiend of water until after meeting Yang, getting him back on the team, and fighting Baigan, and then finally confronting the false king.
You knew there was some sort of bizarre control going on there.
Oh yeah, but you didn't know that he'd been literally replaced.
Yeah, that's true.
And I have to agree with Lex on the Palom and Porum sacrifice. That's a really, really powerful moment there. And it just...
What makes it so powerful is Tella's reaction to it. How
For
he's
sure.
like, this should have been me. I'm the old guy. I should be the one who's sacrificing myself.
Yep. And so he is. Also, that is the Super Soft quest from Final Fantasy IX is an homage to this moment.
I was going to say, as I was playing through this time, I actually noticed quite a few things. Final Fantasy IX was intended as a kind of love letter to the franchise. There's so many things in Final Fantasy IV that are directly, referenced in Final Fantasy IX. It was really cool to notice them all.
The 2 moons, small things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot from all the games, but they especially wanted to get their 9 references, or their 4 references into 9. Because I think a lot of the people who made 9 I think 4 was a lot of their first Final Fantasy, not the one that they necessarily played first, but I think it's the first one a lot of them worked on.
All right, Ryu, go ahead.
They encounter the brainwashed Kane. Oh, you don't know he's brainwashed yet. Come on, plot synopsis. In the Red Wing Fleet, who forces Cecil to retrieve the Crystal of Earth in exchange for Rosa's life. The party goes to Troya, but find that the crystal was already stolen by the Dark Elf. They also find Edward in the Trojans' care, having been severely injured in the shipwreck. He gives them a whisper weed if you go see him. This is optional, mind you. And uses them to help them defeat the Dark Elf from the hospital despite his condition. If you don't do that, when you fight the Dark Elf, eventually you get wrecked and you just lose. In gratitude, the Epopts, which is a very silly name for a very serious position, allow Cecil to borrow the crystal.
Cecil immediately takes it to the Tower of Zot, and they fight their way past the Mega Sisters to the top. Cecil gives Golbez the crystal unquestioningly, but Golbez refuses to return Rosa. Tella steps forward and casts the meteor spell to avenge Anna, and while it does not kill Golbez, it does break his hold on Kane. Golbez cannot bring himself to kill Cecil and retreats. Tella dies from the power of the spell, lamenting that he died for revenge before asking Cecil to avenge his death. They free Rosa, and she and Cecil share a kiss before welcoming the remorseful Kane back into the party. They defeat Barbarisha, Archfiend of Wind, and Rosa teleports them back to Baron as the tower collapses.
This would be the point to remind everyone that the FF Wiki is written by fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a really, really big plot point here. Obviously,
So
go ahead.
The Tella sacrificing himself to cast Meteor when it's literally a late game spell that Radia can learn and chuck around like it's candy. Tella has very specifically been called a man past his prime, and he is hard locked at 90 MP. You can actually, through cheating, get Soma drops and whatnot to give him just a little bit more, and he can actually cast Meteor no problem. But the plot reason is that he literally doesn't have enough mana to cast Meteor anymore, so he is literally fueling it with his life. That's how driven by vengeance he is.
And another example of gameplay and story integration.
Yes.
Kane tells them that Golbez is seeking the 4 dark crystals to open the way to the moon. Using the magma stone that Golbez gave Kane, party opens the way underground in Agot. The Enterprise ends up in the middle of a battle between the dwarves and the Red Wings and crashes near the Dwarven castle. Although King Jot says his crystal is safe, the party finds the Calcabrina dolls belonging to Princess Luca are possessed. After they defeat the dolls, Golbez arrives and incapacitates them being the party, not the dolls. Before he can finish them off, the party, again, Rydia returns and saves the party, having aged to adulthood and gained new summons in the Fey March. Golbez uses the last of his strength to steal the crystal and escape.
I really liked this piece of the game. For some reason, I very much enjoy fighting the Calcabrina dolls. I think it's a different kind of enemy. It's a different kind of fight for the early on in the Final Fantasy series.
It's cute. It's creepy. It's adorable. I have to say one thing here because I have to reveal my Final Fantasy XIV fandom right now. They actually bring Calcabrina into one of the newest dungeons in the game, the Anti-Tower, as the final boss, and they follow the same format. It starts as three small dolls of each color, and it plays a ranged version of the Calcabrina theme.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is awesome, by the way.
And then they combine. Oh, it's amazing. And they combine together, become the full doll, and then it plays the Heavensward boss theme, and it's just a great fight in both this game and in 14. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to play it or watch it, do so.
The actual sprite for the big massive doll freaks me out.
Yeah, it is super creepy.
It's weird looking.
I showed my wife that, and she's like, "I want one." She has a creepy doll collection. I kid you not, like 30 of them. Okay, moving on. King Jut tells the party to go to the Tower of Babel and recover the 7 stolen crystals with the help of dwarven tanks. Cecil and the I'm tired, guys. Cecil and the company. Cecil and Company.
Cecil and Company.
Thank you. Man. Slow down, Jason.
Cecil Incorporated.
Cecil Incorporated. Yeah.
Kids Incorporated.
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
that's been going through my head.
Best the evil Dr. Lugai.
Lugai, I think.
Lugai. Dr. Hojo, but are unable to stop the tower's cannons from shelling the dwarves. Yang forces them all out of the control room and sacrifices himself to destroy the artillery. Golbez attempts to kill the rest of them on the way out of the tower by removing a bridge, but Sid saves them with the Enterprise. They come under attack by the Red Wings, so Sid flies back to Agart entrance and jumps off to collapse it by hand detonating a bomb.
Because he couldn't just throw the bomb off. He had to literally be throwing the bomb.
He had to make sure that there was enough power in that bomb, and the only thing with that much energy was his bombastic self.
Oh, and spoiler alert, that doesn't kill him.
Nope.
And in fact, when Sid jumps off the ship to quote unquote sacrifice himself to hand detonate that bomb, you're already just coming off of watching Yang sacrifice himself. So you've got two self-sacrifices in a very short amount of time, and it's like, okay, I've spent all of my emotional energy at this point. Later, Sid, fuck off.
Well, as I recall, Cecil actually comments on it. He says, "Why is everyone just rushing to hand their lives away? It's stupid."
Yeah, good call.
Because they know that
actually,
the death quote has been fulfilled.
They know that the party limit is about to be breached if someone else joins the party.
I imagine like the short story, The Lottery. They all get together and they have to draw lots and pick a stone. Okay, Sid, you're next.
You know what gets me is that it's hilarious that so they right as you come into the castle, they have Sid leave. So, literally seconds before the fight with Kelka and Brina, just so there's a gap in your party so Rydia can come in. So they're very much and then he leaves because they know that you're just about to get another new person too. Like, Sid read the script. Like,
There's a very similar moment in Final Fantasy IX where I think Cinna has been helping you get back to Alexandria, and then the moment you arrive there, he leaves, and then you meet up with the rest of your party.
Chaperone party members.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sid's just trying to make sure that those two crazy kids actually, say that they love each other and get married. That's what he's in this for.
Also, Sid and the Enterprise appear in Final Fantasy XIV. Huzzah!
Well, yeah, but Sid and the
Also, I
Enterprise
have to correct myself. It was
specifically
Marcus.
just this game. Yeah, I was thinking it was Marcus, and Marcus, by the way, I love Marcus. He's my favorite small character. But no, yeah, this is Sid obviously in the Enterprise show up like all in 14 and all of them. They're not always called the Enterprise.
Sid as an engineer is more of a direct reference from 14. Obviously, there's a Sid in most Final Fantasy games, but in 14, Sid's the engineer, and the pilot of the Enterprise airship, which is pretty cool. The original airship you build in 14.
Yep,
it's a nice ref.
That quest was a bitch.
Ready to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
A short stop in Baron has Sid's engineers upgrade the airship so it can carry the hovercraft. The party uses this to reach the Eblan cave after finding Eblan itself deserted. There, they meet Prince Edge Geraldine as he fails to defeat Rubicant, the Archfield of Fire.
Fire on him.
Although he is testy at first, he joins them. They enter Babil via its cave entrance and find Edge's parents, the King and Queen, but Lugai has turned them into monsters. They regain their senses halfway through the fight and kill themselves to Edge's sorrow. Although Rubicant claims to have no hand in it, Edge swears revenge and the party attacks. Rubicant retreats and the party finds the crystals in another room, but a trapdoor opens and they fall into another airship. He immediately sees it and name it the Falcon. Sid, who was rescued by the dwarves, adds mithril plating to it so it can fly over lava. King Giot gives them the key to the sealed cave so they can save the last crystal.
Yeah, so I just have to mention that Rubicant is one of my favorite villains ever. he's just awesome. He reminds me of someone that fights with a bit of pride, if you will.
Oh, he absolutely does. He's kind of an old serial villain in that he wants he wants to win, but he doesn't want, to use.
He wants your best.
Yeah.
He's lawful evil, basically.
Yes, exactly.
I don't even know if
exactly
he's evil.
Right.
Well, possibly not, actually.
But he has a great mechanic where if you use an ice attack on him while his cloak is down, it heals him, and then he'll counter with an ice attack on himself. But if you use a fire attack on him while his cloak is wrapped around him, he will counter with a cure spell on your party. He will give you tit for tat.
Wow, that's interesting. I never exploited that. Okay, I just like the guy because, again, like we've already mentioned a lot, he's got like a sense of honor and stuff like that. He
heals you before the fight.
Yeah, he's like the only boss in the game that does that, except for I think the final boss, but it's really your party that heals you. Spoiler.
No, well, he's the only boss, but he does it twice.
I see. And he reminds me of, what was the name of the, you mentioned this before when we were discussing, among all things, the archetype character from who influenced Zex, that guy.
Shot Aznable.
Yeah, who's got like, he's like, he is technically a villain, but he's got like honor and pride and all that good stuff. Yeah, anyways,
the official sort of archetype name, as according to TV tropes, is the Dragon. He's usually the second in command, much more powerful than the true villain, but works for his own reasons. And especially in tokusatsu stuff, he's usually really honorable and wants a good fight. So he's very much created in the vein of tokusatsu, like Power Rangers.
It's just a good character. I forgot to make a Dragon Ball Z joke about Meteor being the Spirit Bomb, but we'll move past it. So,
what are Rubicant's motivations in the game then?
That's a good call.
I always figured that Rubicant was just sort of like going along with his fellow fiends because he was trying to test Golbez to see kind of what his power, or I guess probably testing Zemus to see who was strongest, because he wanted to serve whoever was strongest, and he considered, I guess, Zemus as strong until he fought Cecil, whatever, man, it's early, and then he kind of yielded to them, and so I think he was pretty much just, I want to serve whoever's strongest.
Specifically, though, the fiends all have an undercurrent of being sort of despised by society and wanting to get, not necessarily vengeance in all of their cases, but want to sort of take a rightful place that they feel has been denied them. Which is part of what Golbez promises all of them, because he too feels that way, though you don't learn about that in the most of them, because that was a part of the scenario that was cut and restored for the DS version.
So they're disenfranchised, is what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, Ryu?
Let's see, where were we? As soon as the party takes the crystal, Golbez reasserts control over Kane and forces him to steal it. Jot says the only way to stop Golbez now would be with the legendary Lunar Whale. For some reason, that's in italics, and it definitely, deserves the echo treatment. Sid attaches a drill to the Falcon so the party can return to the surface. Along the way, they visit the Fey March, land of the Eidolons, and gain the powers of Leviathan and Asura. They also find Yang recovering in the Sylph Cave and revive him with a frying pan given them to him by his wife, Sheila. Who
that makes me laugh so much.
Yeah, that's hysterical.
In return.
You received the frying pan of love. Mm-hmm. I thought that was great.
On the surface, they find King Baron's spirit as the Eidolon Odin in Baron Castle. You can actually go find him as early as the first time you come back to the surface with Rydia. A lot of people will wait until you get Edge just for the added oomph. And in the DS version, you always want to wait until you have Edge, because you can steal an augment from him. And you can give the Darkness ability back to Cecil, or anyone else you want.
Nice. Okay.
You can also skip most of that
Oh
entire
yeah,
paragraph.
no, that is entirely
It's all
all of
optional,
that
pretty
is
much.
Yeah.
optional, but except for finding the drill falcon, but all of it is
And the
really
lunar whale.
good. We haven't found the lunar whale yet.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
But all of that is really good side quest stuff, and is actually both very funny and very touching.
Yeah, the whole ordeal going actually through the Sylph Cave. If you were underleveled, you were in for it, because I was underleveled. I was underleveled, and I got my ass kicked by all the trash in that place.
I mean, I used
actually-
the Sylph Cave 2 level, so
Yeah, I ended up doing the same thing.
yeah.
So yeah.
Pro tip, if Marlboros are in the dungeon, you're gonna have a bad time. And that's like the only trash there aside from other enemies, which can also poison and inflict status effects. And the floor poisons you.
No,
That's
it
an
doesn't
interesting
poison
mechanic.
you. It's only a damage over time.
It's a damage over time, yeah, but
Yeah.
So
but
cast
still,
float.
that's interesting.
Hope you remember to
Cast
have
float.
that spell. And remember to
that's-
cast at every floor.
Oh yeah, that's like
That's
It
annoying.
is, but it's so
Yeah, it
good
is.
spell.
It really is.
Also, it's hilarious in that it turns one of the trash mobs in the Eidolon March into a complete non-issue because it only uses Earthquake.
Yeah, it's the
Arachne.
Yes, yeah, they're laughable at that point. You just pick them off at your leisure.
There was not a quick infinite XP exploit, but in some versions of the game, you can encounter a match which is one summoner lady and one Arachne, and if you kill the Arachne, the lady will summon another Arachne, and that's all she does.
Well, yeah, the other very annoying piece of that Sylph Cave is running into the woman that controls the toads.
Oh yeah, well that's
God
that is,
damn it!
that's irritating.
Those things are
not
so
difficult.
fucking annoying.
Yeah.
No, it's not difficult. It's just irritating. It's fucking annoying as fuck.
it's like in 7 when you run into the party of 6 toads and it's just you keep on getting toad,
Yeah,
toad.
yeah.
We get
Frog
it.
song, frog song.
Yeah.
If you kill all of her toads and not her, she will toad herself.
And then run away.
Well, she tries to run away. She doesn't get very far.
Okay.
I'll read the next part because it's so short. The party goes to Mysidia, where the Elder gathers everyone at the Tower of Prayers to summon the Lunar Whale, an airship capable of reaching the moon from the ocean. Cecil and the others take it and leave Earth. That is a very poorly formatted sentence. It is run on. Oh my. To
One
summon
comma
from
is
the
an
airship
ocean
capable
the
of
lunar
gathering the
whale,
moon from
an
the
airship
ocean.
capable of reaching the moon. Are you listening, Wiki? Proofread. No.
Probably not.
In all honesty, it's either read this from the wiki or me having to spend hours upon hours trying to do this myself, and I would just much rather read it from the wiki.
Oh, that's fair.
Call
I
me lazy if you
I
want.
could try
so...
and recite the entire plot from memory. At this
Yes,
point, I
but
think
you're
I
gonna-
could.
You probably could do
we
a
should
line
just
by
do it
line.
like improv theater.
Wait, I think Flint and JT were talking at the same time. What'd you say, Flint?
I was saying that we should just do it like improv theater. Someone starts reciting the story. If they make a mistake, everybody else just has to go with it.
All right, and so that's how Slappy Pants got the bacon cheeseburger from the Goblet of Fire, who is a big villain in armor in this film. And so Dumbledore screams, "Harry, what did you do with the dark crystals?" And I like this idea. Let's do it. Let's do it for fun. No.
We'll have an improv night some other time, okay?
Oh my god.
Aren't all of our podcasts improv?
Pretty
nights?
much, yeah.
Amateur hour.
Yeah, for sure.
The freaking moon. I love. I've mentioned this many times before. I'll say it again. I love when the games do something with the world map, and you don't see a lot of that nowadays. But when you do something with the world map, I'm gonna like it because I like seeing that change. And no game handles it better than 4, bar none. 5 has a cool mechanic, but 4 is just amazing. You get to go to the underworld, and that's creepy in and of itself. And then you go to the freaking moon. It's
Which has the some width of like 3 areas, basically.
Yeah.
It's smaller than going to the blue planet. So,
Well, yeah, it's
Yes. It's the moon.
exactly.
yeah, all of 3 areas, which you get to by moving your cursor exactly one screen, one direction. So, so yeah.
But yeah, no, I do like that you're not locked out from the maps.
Yes.
And they definitely feel a lot more, even though you technically have the 3 maps in 3 as well, of the island, the overworld, and the underwater, the moon definitely and the underworld definitely feel a lot more populated than the later 2 maps of 3, because there's just a lot of big emptiness in the proper world map for Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah,
Agreed.
And a lot of mountains you have to hop over with a stupid ship. I'm still pissed about that.
Yeah.
That is a terrible mechanic.
Okay, so moving on. The party meets Fusoya in the Crystal Palace. He is Lunarian, charged with watching over the rest of his race as they sleep. He explains that they once tried to colonize the blue planet, but decided to live on the moon until they could live in peace with humans. One Lunarian named Zemus disagreed and wanted to take the planet. Though he was restrained, he was still able to manipulate people on the blue planet, such as Golbez. Zemus's goal is to activate the Giant of Babel to wipe out the world's population. Fusoya also reveals that his younger brother, Kluya, went to the blue planet to teach the natives and fathered 2 sons, one of whom is Cecil. Dun-dun-dun!
Dun-dun-dun.
Also, yes, it's probably likely that the Tower of Babel and the Tower of Zot are both Lunarian leftovers from the colonization days.
I wonder if this is actually a shot at people's paranoia about aliens building the pyramids and such.
They were grain
Could
storage
be.
silos. We know this by now.
Bravo, sir.
Oh, history by musical, loosely based on a religious text. Exactly what you can expect from the Republican Party candidate.
Being real,
fuck
though,
off.
Being real.
And that's one of your better options.
This is I really enjoyed
Jumped out.
this. This was like the story's, big twist.
Yes.
One of them. And this was the part that really endeared me to FF4's story. Because I think it obviously has an amazing story, in my opinion. But like this moment where you find out, Cecil has the crazy alien father, and is like in many
And an
ways
uncle
the
made of
chosen
pudding.
one. All that kind of stuff really appeals to me. So I really liked this moment, and I kind of when Fusoya started explaining, I almost tried not to roll my eyes at first because I was like, okay, it's Final Fantasy. Just need to let the crazy roll in and deal with it. But then I really did actually like it as a plot point, and how the people, their planet was destroyed and they were waiting until life evolved enough to be able to communicate. But I do find that also kind of a weakness because it's like, okay, people are walking and talking now. Do they need to build massive technology for you to go down and live there now? Like, why are you still sleeping? But that's for later.
I think the reason they're still sleeping is because of Zemus.
Yeah, but I mean, when we get to the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. There's no reason that they can't just start migrating in now,
Mhm.
but oh well.
But yeah, it's a really cool plot point. I really enjoyed this moment in the story.
Agreed.
It's a good moment.
Accompanied by Fusoya, who can neutralize the Giant of Babel's force field, Cecil returns to the Blue Planet to find the Giant revived. The entire world, including former party members Edward, Sid, Yang, Palom, and Porum, participates in the counterattack. After using Sid's airship to break into the Giant, the party defeats the Archfiends one after the other and destroys the CPU. When the Giant stops, Golbez confronts the party intent on destroying them. Fusoya breaks Zemus's mind control, and Golbez remembers that he is Cecil's older brother. After humans killed Kluya and Cecilia died in childbirth, Zemus manipulated the vulnerable child Theodore and turned him into Golbez. He and Fusoya leave the others for the moon, intending to defeat Zemus themselves.
Yeah, so that's another amazing moment in the game. Another nice twist. But I have to say something here. We've been laughing about all these characters sacrificing themselves here, and upon your very first playthrough of the game, spoilers, you're probably gonna be heartbroken as these characters leave your party. But then Square loses its nuts at the end of the game here, and ta-da! All of your characters are still alive and well. So.
Oh yeah.
If not well, alive and kicking.
Yeah.
Except for Tella.
Yeah. Everyone
dead.
except for Tella, who legit did make a sacrifice, but
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything else was, I guess, a cock tease for a lack of better term.
Well,
So
there are. I mean, the only problems I have with Final Fantasy IV story, and they are very few and far between, but there are only two things. That thing you just mentioned, because even Final Fantasy II, to its very meager credit, had the balls to kill characters and keep them dead.
You are so salty about 2.
I am too. No, the only one who got a last minute reprieve was Leela. But 2 killed characters off, but 4 is just like, the kid sacrifice that we were like about to bawl over earlier. Yeah, they're fine. We don't explain how, just they're fine. You can't undo this spell. It's impossible. They did it to themselves. They're fine.
Yeah,
but
it eventually took their dad coming in and saying, "Kids, if you don't unstone yourselves, I'm going to spank you with a sledgehammer."
But when old Father
yeah, we're
went
fine, we're
quack,
fine.
quack, quack, 2 little ducks came on the land back. Sorry, just remembered a nursery rhyme.
okay.
And the second problem that I have, and we see this here, is the I feel like they overused the mind control mechanic, and one can argue that
They
it's
definitely do.
foreshadowing. But after like the third, I was under mind control. I was waiting for Zemus to reveal at the end. I was under mind control by Necron.
Well, I mean,
I was actually gonna.
there is only the 3 I was under mind control.
Well, I was actually gonna point that out about Cain and how he must be weak-minded to succumb to those Jedi mind tricks constantly. So,
Well, it was always the reason that he does, and they go over this, is because he wants himself some Rosa, and he really salty and jealous about the fact that his buddy got the girl instead of
and
him.
right here, I'm gonna insert a little bit of Marvin Gaye over the top of this.
Cain, now completely freed, returns and helps the others escape from the collapsing giant. Although he feels unworthy for his part in Zemus's schemes, Cecil and Rosa assure him that he is forgiven. I did it as a joke and now it's ruining me. As they prepare to depart for the moon on the lunar whale, Cecil insists that Rosa and Rydia stay behind. Though they apparently leave, they reveal themselves once the ship reaches the moon and remind Cecil that they have as much to stake in the battle as he does and that their skills are essential to the party. You were going to go fight the final boss without a white mage. Are you insane?
Yes. He did not expect to come back from it, so yes.
So, and right here, I also want to point out that I believe starting with the Game Boy Advance port of the game,
Yep.
It enabled you to actually be able to swap out party members here. You could actually bring one of the, or more of the 5 party members that quote-unquote sacrificed themselves early in the game. You can actually go back to the Mount of Ordeals, get their ultimate weapons and armor, and
there is a new dungeon added to the Mount of Ordeals.
Correct, yes. And you can actually take them along with you on your final dungeon. So,
important thing to note, they don't start at their original levels that you left them at. They actually level up with your party, so it's not useless to do so.
Yeah, they actually match Cecil's whatever Cecil's level is at that point in time.
And
there's also a dungeon added to the post game to give you a reason to actually take them down, so you can unlock their segments in those dungeons. And
Pretty
that's
cool
a nifty
addition,
bit of.
to be fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's the only one I didn't do, actually.
I
did
actually did.
Oh, how was it? We'll get to that later. I figured you want to talk about the during gameplay, right?
Oh yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah.
Pro tip: if you're doing this, replace your fighters with Palom Emporum, double Meteor, double Holy. You'll be done the final fight in like 2 minutes.
That's a good call. I wish I would have thought about that.
Oh my
Yeah, me
goodness,
too.
man! It's insanely easy.
I definitely wish I would have thought about that, because I actually just rolled in with the legit party, if you will. So
I mean, I had to on my second playthrough.
does the DS version
and
not allow you to do the swap out?
The DS version does not give you the swap out option.
Okay.
They make up for it with all the augment abilities, so you can pull out their special sub abilities instead of getting them back. So you can still have twin cast. You can get dual casting.
That's
you can
right.
Get omni casting.
I completely forgot about that. You're totally right. For some reason, I was thinking the DS version did allow you to do that, but you were correct. Yep.
Yeah, once you get dual casting, the DS version's difficulty does sort of get blown out the window because it allows you to start on your first turn. Okay, Rosa, slow, haste. Slow the enemy, haste yourself. Go.
And by the way, yeah, never mind. I'll talk about that later.
We're gonna have exactly enough paragraphs for everybody to have an equal amount. This is great.
Huzzah! The crystals of the moon transport the party to the lunar subterrane, where they traverse to the lunar core. There they find Fusoya and Golbez. Cecil and the others watch Golbez and Fusoya defeat Zemus, but his death unleashes a more powerful being named Zeromus, the embodiment of Zemus's reborn spirit and hatred. Zeromus defeats Golbez and Fusoya, then attacks the rest of Cecil's party. Their former allies gather at the Tower of Prayers to restore them to life, and Cecil uses a crystal given to him by Golbez to make Zeromus vulnerable.
After Zeromus' defeat, Fusoya returns to sleep with the rest of his people. Golbez, feeling that he cannot return to Earth after what he has done, and being half Lunarian himself, goes with him. Cecil finally forgives him and calls him brother. Later, the moon heads off into space, and many of the characters return to their homes, several in order to rebuild them. Edward becomes king of Damsayan, Edge becomes king of Eblan, and Yang and Sheila become the new king and queen of Fabul because they're fabulous. Kang goes to Mount Ordeal to train himself. You're welcome. Vowing not to return to Baron until he has proven himself worthy. Everyone but Kane attends Cecil and Rosa's wedding and coronation as king and queen of Baron.
Thus, the end of our story here.
Oh, that ending sequence, man, is actually very feels evoking. I have to say.
It is.
Oh yeah.
And am I not mistaken that what you see in the ending sequence all depends on who of your party is left alive?
No,
No, that's 5.
Okay.
that's 5.
Okay.
That's 5 you're thinking about, yeah.
Okay.
They will all be brought, topped up and be completely fine in the ending of 4. It's 5 where it changes depending on who's awake at the end or not.
Okay.
And that is one of the legit, there are technically 16 different ending
All right,
variations for 5, but
let's not get into that right now. We're gonna have an episode for 5, so
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just an impressive programming feat. It's just that they did.
It is interesting. So overall thoughts on the story, gentlemen?
One of the best.
Good.
Straight up.
Eat good.
Those are big words.
No.
I'm gonna be the dissenting voice here then. We already talked about how the mind control is used too much. I also have a problem with the way that Golbez just basically shows up whenever the hell he wants. But my biggest problem is that the characters are too stupid to ever really do anything differently in the game. Like, you could basically summarize the first 2/3 of the game as following. Golbez is going to get the crystal. Let's stop him by getting the crystal. Oh, we lost the crystal. Golbez is going to get another crystal. Let's go stop him by getting the crystal. Oh, we lost the crystal. Repeat 8 times, is it something like that?
You actually only get 4 crystals over the course of the game total.
But
actually, you only see 4.
Yeah.
You don't even get most of them.
You actually
The first one is
you actually see all 8 by the end.
You see them all, but you do actually those are the moon crystals. Those are actually different, I think. But so it's not we have to get the crystal. It starts off with we have to warn these people. Well, shit. We have to warn these people. Okay, we got here in time.
But we still lost the crystal.
We still lost the crystal. Well, let's go redeem ourselves. Let's go get our revenge. okay, now we have to actually go get the crystal to go rescue our friend, and we're going to give over the crystal. Oh, you asshat. Wait, there's
Which is
more
incredibly
crystals?
naive.
Yeah. But I mean, he doesn't just
Like,
give
yeah,
it
we'll just
over,
give you the crystal.
but it's basically, he does sort of let it go a little too easily, because he's like, you know, Rosa's safe. Is it, you know? Then yeah, he is a bit trusting.
A bit.
And in the end, he's not a complete moron, but yeah, he should know that he's dealing with the villain. But you can definitely say that panic for his girlfriend is clouding his judgment. If not the little head.
It is a bunch of fetch quests. The story, it's essentially a shitload of fetch quests at the top with a bunch of stupidity and naive moves. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy IV has a flawless story at all. However, I am saying that Final Fantasy IV has a very strong story if you can move past the fetch questy nature of it.
A lot of the fest questy nature of the story is just a product of what was being done with video games, what was bog standard. I think that if this had been if this were a book, they would not have made some of the decisions they made that were the product of it being a video game.
Yeah, there was a lot of it was necessities of gateway flagging, because at this stage, plots were largely, you know, cordoned off by, and they still are, but they're much more clever about it. But they were cordoned off by having certain key items or tripping certain flags, and you know, they were definitely trying to push the writing forward with what they had, and you know, they had to cut a lot of content simply because they could not fit it on a cart.
I will say that it definitely feels like the most mature Final Fantasy story for its point in time.
Yes.
Now, I haven't played much of the first three, but I have listened to your retrospectives and I have read about them. It seems like the first game where the way that the story is delivered really actually makes sense. It kind of, I don't know how I can explain this properly. Mature is the word I was looking for, but I don't really know how to explain it more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's like some classic storytelling elements get used in this game.
It's definitely more a cohesive story than some of the others, which are disparate vignettes that come together-ish in the end. Now, like 1 and 3, absolutely. 2 tries a bit more to be a single coherent narrative, but even it falls a bit of, you know, module of the week, rather than building towards a conclusion all the time. Whereas, except for the blatant side quests, and even those, you know, have sort of a link to the main plot, everything that you're doing in this is related to this whole central struggle, even before you realize it.
That was probably the thing that 4 took the most from 2, was the fact that it was all kind of one unified story. Even though 2's, again, side fetchy quests were side fetchy quests, they all related to the overarching goal. It wasn't like in 1 where you went to Elfland because Elfland was there.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you look at 4 for what it is, which is the first Final Fantasy game to have a kind of proper fleshed out story, or back narrative, or however you want to, you know, talk about it, it's not about the repetition of certain parts, which are a weakness. It's about the characters' side plots, and about their motivations, and about where all of that stuff comes from. That's the real strength in 4's story. I don't think it holds a candle to some of the later stories in Final Fantasy, but it is certainly very, very impressive for its time.
Well, it's always, Final Fantasy stories have always been more about the character than the actual plot itself, because as you've mentioned before, the plot is in Final Fantasy is usually varying levels of ridiculous. It's about how the
8.
characters react to the ridiculous.
Also
by
8.
Okay, 8 is the most ridiculous of the ridiculous. I will give you that, but I love the characters. And again, I know some of you don't like the characters, but I think the characters in 8 pull the ridiculous off. And here in 4,
I think
they
it's
are
mostly that people don't like Squall rather than they don't like the characters. Squall does a lot.
You're talking about a game that's not FF4 again?
Yes.
Your
All
mouth.
right.
But the characters here are really a product of their world. They really feel authentic and genuine, and they react to the honestly not as bad levels of okay, fine. When the lunar whale shows up, fine. Then it kind of goes balls to the wall crazy. But
Jumps the shark, if you will.
It jumps the whale. But but it still feels genuine. It still feels thought out. It's
and they respond to the whale with the that is that. Like they are all appropriately like, I have no idea what to make of this, so sure, why not? Let's go with it.
But there had been levels of high technology that had been up to that point, because I gotta say, between the Tower of Babel and the Tower of Zot, we've seen high technology, so it's not too far.
It's not the technology; it's the appearance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the it's not that the oh, we're going to the moon. That's never going to happen. It's that's what our moon ship looks like.
Right.
We'll
Yeah.
take you to the moon.
We
I was
have
talking
a
whale for those of you who.
Neontron moon whale. There are whalers on the moon.
And I'll say this about the story as well. I think up to this point in the series, I think if as far as mythic archetypes are concerned, I really feel like this one adheres more closely to the hero's journey than any of the other previous entries in the series thus far. This really is the first one that adheres to that hero's journey archetype principle.
And I'll tell you, it actually. It feels like it's kind of split down the middle between Cecil taking the first half and then Golbez having the one who has trouble returning to society, because he was in effect, he was just a hero who was being used to do evil. He didn't want to do any of that. So it's interesting that you see that kind of disconnect with the old world through him. So yeah, I like that analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with you, Flint, about the fetch questy nature of the story at times, but I think for me, at least overall, because of how well this adheres to the principles of the hero's journey, I mean, this just resonates hard with me, man. It's I love the story. I love the story.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to get at when I was talking about it being a mature story, and it's definitely helped by the characters. I'm not a fan of the way they all come and go, but with that said, they all bring something good to the story. They all contribute. I'm looking down the list now, and none of them really annoy me like some of the Final Fantasy characters do.
Totally agreed. Not and even Tella, who for me at times is one of the weakest characters just because of his lack of MP and stuff. But he has some great moments. Nobody's ever gonna forget the Spoony Bard thing. Nobody. It's such a silly mistranslation, but it's such a brilliantly delivered line and stuff that just nobody's ever going to forget that.
It's not even technically a mistranslation. It's just extremely liberal with it, because Spoony is an accurate statement of what he is. Like, Spoony has a meaning, and it means stupidly in love. And like the original
Today
one,
I learned that's an actual word.
Same here.
It just means that he
if you
likes
get
the
too
spoon.
You get too spoony, you start forky.
Oh.
TLS After Dawn.
Yeah.
God.
I usually have to bring a knifey to get people to forky me.
That got dark. Jeez.
Oh
my God.
And that is going to wrap up part 1 of our Final Fantasy IV retrospective review here. We do want to go ahead and leave you with a question for the listenership for this week. We want to know what you think about this idea of actually splitting the episodes in two when we run into a longer episode. So let us know how you feel about that, and we will take your comments and feedback under consideration here. In the meantime, like I said, we do want to hear from you, so send your questions and feedback to us at lifestreampod@gmail.com. You can also reply to the episode posts each week on the Lifestream.net forums. Please leave us feedback on iTunes, and we will do our best to read your questions, comments, and feedback on air. We'd like to thank you again for listening to the Lifestream Final Fantasy Retrospective series. Take care, and always protect the crystals. Music featured on this podcast is courtesy and copyright of Square Enix.
If I can point something out, Lex actually hasn't read anything yet. I think we skipped over him somehow.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
We did.
Yeah, he did.
I read out a paragraph.
Oh, I must have missed that. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm thinking.
What the fuck?
I think the
you
problem
awake?
is that we're all missing our usual pot of coffee before we get our day started.
Oh my god! I work a night shift, you guys. This is like watching the sun rise in the west or some shit.
I think you've just been thrown off by having two extra people on the pod. It's just ruined a nice three-way rhythm that the three of you had going.
Giggity.
We do have a nice three-way going.
Oh shit! It's too early for this.
TLS podcast.
After dawn.
After dawn.
Nice. Okay, sorry, Flint. Go ahead.
What were we talking about? Right, so
Story.
Final Fantasy IV, yes. Golbez abducts Rosa, etc. Then